Good morning, friends, and welcome to the Wednesday Word. What do you do when the way ahead is unclear? What do you do when pain and despair remain a fact of life for you? What do you do when God feels distant from you, even appears unconcerned about your condition? I think all of us experience these points because we're human. And because we also believe that God exists and God is good and gracious. When God appears distant, absent even, and when our immediate experience is one of pain and despair, what do we do? Well, if you're like me, you're moved to lament, to shed tears, to even cry aloud. You know, if we open our Bible roughly to the center of the Bible, we find ourselves in the book of the Psalms. What are the Psalms? Well, the Psalms are poems or songs, I like to think of them as poems or songs, written by a person with a deep faith in God. And just as there are psalms filled with joy, like a celebration over a blessing that has happened in the life, like the birth of a newborn baby or return of prosperity, there are just in about an equal number psalms that center upon unanswered prayer, unredeemed suffering, and also a lack of clarity in the way ahead. One of those psalms is Psalm 13, and I'd like to read that for us this morning. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I bear this pain in my soul? How long must I have sorrow in my heart all the day long? How long should my enemies exult over me? Consider and answer me, O God. Lighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say, I have prevailed over him, lest my foes rejoice because I am shaken. I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to you, O Lord, because you have dealt bountifully with me all my days. Unquote. Now that, I think we will admit, is quite a journey made over just 6 verses in this Psalm 13. And you know, those first verses, as I read them, they feature the questions I think all of us raise up to God from time to time, the questions that are framed by great honesty about our condition. No sugarcoating of reality. And let me add that if we're in any doubt that as people of faith, you and I should not be asking these questions, that this is not part of what the life of faith looks like, well, I strongly disagree with that. Because the Psalms are here to let us know this is a vital part of our faith journey. But then we move to those middle 2 verses in this same psalm, and we hear a plea to see God once more. Now let me suggest that this call to lighten our eyes is not made because the psalmist does no longer believe in God or have a faith in God, but precisely because the psalmist does have a faith in God. The psalmist wants to have a much clearer picture of the nature and character of God, the will and the ways of God for their life. Such requests do not result out of a denial of God's existence or a rejection of God's goodness. Now you may ask, why does the writer, given all that has happened, still believe this to be true, that God is good and gracious? What makes him or her, because we don't know exactly who wrote this psalm, hold on to their faith and their trust in God? Well, the answer, I feel, comes through slowing down, through recounting. It comes through pausing to look at the bigger picture, the longer term picture, to see how the journey of life has gone to this point. After that outpouring of feelings, the shedding of tears, even the raising of a clenched fist to heaven, perhaps, I sense there comes a moment of pause, a God-given moment of reflection. Can you perhaps see the writer putting the pen down for just a few moments and taking a deep breath? Perhaps you will join me now in a very practical spiritual exercise. With me, I'm going to invite you to inhale for 5 seconds and hold that breath in your lung for 7 seconds, and then to exhale or let that air go for about 4 seconds as you keep the tongue in your mouth to the roof of your mouth. This is an age-old spiritual practice, and why don't we just do that together for a few moments this morning? I like to think of this exercise in a very figurative way. By that I mean I like to think that when we inhale, when we take in air, we are bringing to our attention all that has gone on before. We're taking it into ourselves again, the events of maybe the past weeks or days, for instance. And then when we hold our breath, I like to think that God gives us a chance to reflect upon those same events, even meditating upon them. But there's more. When you and I exhale, by holding our tongue to the roof of our mouths, we not only let go of air, we also expand our lung capacity. There's some resistance that we apply to our lungs to expand them, even though we are emptying them of air. And to return to a figurative way of thinking about this exercise, I like to think that after we have reflected upon these things, we are able to come through with an enlarged understanding of these same things. As our lungs expand, even though we exhale, we're able to see things in a larger way than we did before. And I think that's what happens in Psalm 13. The writer, upon reflection, upon using the gift of a God-given moment to reflect, is able to call to mind how God has been present, faithful, blessing them richly. Their eyes, as they have asked, are lightened, and they can see things much more fully now than before. Now, does this mean that the darkness grabbing them is an illusion? Hardly. But I do sense that this individual, at the very least, is able to see the hand of God holding on to them at the same time. That the same hand has been opened to them, giving them what they have needed all of their life long. We should never be afraid, I feel, to let God know what we are feeling and thinking even. The life of faith is not a quiet, unquestioning acceptance of the ways of God. Just read the Psalms and you'll discover the opposite to be true. Now, the life of faith that we see recounted in the Psalms consists in an ongoing engagement with God, and the kind of engagement that expands our hearts and our minds, and indeed our lungs. Our music link today takes you to a new setting of the song, a new musical setting of the song by the artist Alyssa Turner. The words here are not the words you will find that I've just read to you. These are the words that she has crafted, but I think she captures the sentiments of this psalm perfectly. Perhaps you may use this video today as a springboard to a time of prayer and reflection upon your life and over the next several days. All of us continue to travel through unsettled times as people of faith. As we continue to do this, friends, may the peace that God offers us through Jesus Christ enfold us and enable us to see the bountiful blessings of God. May God continue to guide your journey. Amen.